This is street artist and cultural agent
my name is
Callie.
Callie, and if any of you in the room know me, you probably know me by the name of Swoon, which is a tag name that I adopted, I guess, over 10 years ago when I started doing wheat paste out on the street illegally, and tag names seemed like a good idea. And then it just kind of stuck with me.
Starting out as a wheat paste street artist, her work reflects the attitudes of Dewey, treating art as experience.
And so, I was really, really, really hungry for context. I wanted to become part of something larger than myself. I wanted to embrace the world and become a part of the world. And looking back on it, I think that my response to that desire was quite literal. I basically started making drawings and sort of gluing them to the world, to walls and things. So I had a series of drawings that I started. They're portraits of people in city, and then sort of looking at architecture and looking at the way that people interact with cities and stuff. And I think that the first thing that really happened was I was a young woman, and I really had no sense of my ability to make any kind of change in the world. And then suddenly, in this very concrete way, I went outside, I put up a wheat paste, I walked by the next day, and there it was. And I had changed that street corner. And so just that very, very small thing of okay, it was a gray wall on the side of an abandoned bodega, and now it's a gray wall with a picture on it. And it's, so people can have a moment of connection with that. And it's this very, very tiny change. But nonetheless, for me to be able to see and read back that I could have an impact on things was really, really transformative.
Her work also came to embrace the ideas of Schlavsky and the value of defamiliarizing common context through her work, to allow people to imagine that something else is possible.
You make a small change, and that creates the feeling that maybe there's a slightly different world kind of existing right where we are, and you just have to have a little bit of a perceptual shift in order to see it. That was kind of the hope that I took away from that story.
Beyond defamiliarizing context like a street corner, her next project went even further to create something both familiar and unfamiliar, building a series of rafts.
That I spent about 4 years making. This one is called the Miss Rockaway Armada, and we were a collective of about 30 people, and we built these rafts, and we went down the Mississippi River. And then this one is the Swimming Cities of Switchback Sea, which was a series of a flotilla that I designed that came down the Hudson River to New York City, sort of performing along the way. And then the Swimming Cities of Serenissima, let me click that next one, with which we actually were able to traverse the Adriatic Sea, terrifyingly enough, and arrive in Venice, which was incredibly magical. And the really cool thing about arriving on a rig like this is people freak out. And they're like, what are you? I still love being a boat. But anyway, I found through years of working in this way that if you can make something that people are not expecting to see, and if you can roll up with it in a place that people are not expecting to find it in a way that just totally blows people's expectations, it's like this little opening happens, In that moment of surprise and in that little kind of moment of cognitive dissonance, you're able to actually get a reaction from people which is much different than any other response I've ever had to a work that I created.
Beyond defamiliarization, though, she also embraces Schiller's play drive.
It's almost like you create a little opening into this childlike part of themselves. It's like that part that's usually kind of ground down by the relentless, grueling details of every day. And if you can kind of break that open, then there's suddenly this feeling of a lot more possibility. And that the world is kind of stranger and a little bit more, there's just a lot more going on than maybe you imagined 5 minutes ago.
Her next project was in response to the Haitian earthquake.
And we heard the news of the earthquake in Haiti. And I think that, like everyone else, we were totally, totally shaken by that news. And we immediately started to ask ourselves, what can we do to help? And, it was pretty apparent that we weren't going to be first responders. We're not translators. We're not medics. And of course, there was a little bit of that question of we're artists. What can we do? Is there anything that we can do? Does it even make any sense? And so we started sort of researching and thinking about what were some of the responses that other architects, artists, activists, community organizers had to disaster. And we found the work of an Iranian-born architect named Nader Khalili was to develop a system which was easily replicatable and which could make houses that were extremely resistant to earthquakes and tornadoes, and which were built relatively cheaply with the materials that people had on hand. And so we talked about it a bit, and we decided that sort of combining this sound and proven kind of architectural system with our own, ingenuity and creativity, and also trying to sort of draw upon and think about the strength of our creative community. We found a village called Begones, which is outside of Leogan, and it's a village of farmers and mango growers and stone carvers, and they were really excited to work with us. And so we learned this architectural style, and then we shared it, and we built a community center over the period of 6 weeks, and we engaged a lot of artisans and local craftspeople. And
To me, this reflects Freire and Boal's ideas of empowering people through their work to enact change in their own lives and communities, while she's still grappling with the question of what art can and cannot accomplish. She lands on the answer that its strength is community, but also the power to imagine new outcomes and possibilities.
So it just really sort of gave me a certain kind of a faith that you could make unlikely things happen, because when we started to think about this project, a lot of people said, like, you're just a couple of artists, like, what are you thinking? You're not a big NGO, you're not experienced in dealing with disaster, why don't you leave it to the big groups, like, they're having a hard time as it is. And I just really had the gut feeling that what we had, which was being a very small and focused group that wanted to, on a very person-to-person scale, sort of lend our energy and our help, could be kind of our unique strength, and it was.
Her most recent project was called the Climate Ribbon Project, which invited people to write what they were afraid to lose to climate change on a ribbon, which then decorated a garden at the end of the People's Climate March. People were invited to add their own ribbons, as well as to read others aloud and then take them home with them. Through the lens of Kant's beauty, the aesthetic attraction of the ribbons invited people to engage with them and to take the ribbon home. This then served as a reminder and a contract with the other people of their own reasons for engaging with the work.
Even though we've seen like the 1000th brutal kind of ending, you're able to still say, no, I don't accept this as an inevitable outcome. I'm going to reimagine and regroup and try to make a new situation and a new path through these situations.
Swoon is a prolific cultural agent. Before anything else, though, she believes in the power of art to imagine new possibilities.
But more like a code word for the kind of like the trickster's belief in miracles, which is to say that, like, if you kind of break a rule over here and move a boundary over there and have like a moment of creative play and create something of beauty, that through all of those actions and combined with a lot of dedication, you can start to create little cracks in the kind of facade of impossibility and inevitability that I think overlays a lot of our lives and that a lot of us battle. And that, through those cracks, little kinds of possibilities start to come up, and they ask to be born, and then they're born, and they start sort of unifying and linking with each other, and that's a really powerful force, and that's the force that I would say I live my life by. So thanks for letting me share it with you guys.